Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wildly Thriving podcast. Today's guest is Megan Abbott. She is the founder of Trifecta Collective, a holistic health practice focusing on finding and addressing the root causes to chronic health issues to help women reconnect and heal their bodies. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner, functional blood chemistry specialist, personal trainer, and energy healer with over a decade of experience in the health and wellness field. So excited to have you on, Megan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. I also love to hear your story to start off. So if you could just dive in and tell the listeners how you got to this point, because I think all of us as health practitioners, we end up going through some stuff that got us here. So if you don't mind sharing your story, go ahead.
So, short version here. So, growing up, I had a lot of trauma that led to a lot of mental and emotional struggles. And in my mid 20s, I found the gym, and I really specifically found strength training. And I mean, it was life changing. It helped me get off meds I was on for over a decade and actually be stable enough to do so and feel good enough, which just launched my passion for the health and wellness field overall. And then a couple years after that, I was in a super minor car accident, but experienced a ton of health issues as a result. I started experiencing chronic low back pain, bursitis in my hip. I lost feeling in my right leg for a whole year, gut issues, chronic fatigue issues. My hair was falling out. I was gaining weight, and I got diagnosed with all of these things after the fact. Yeah, I mean, I was such a healthy person, and they were like, I'm so sick for seemingly no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I got that. My question is from that is when you got in the car accident, do you think the trigger for the Hashimoto's and all of the autoimmune conditions, the health issues that you were having, do you think it was impacting your nervous system? Was cortisol the trigger, or can you kind of reverse engineer that and explain why a car accident that was minor can cause that many diagnoses?
Yeah, there's this whole analogy in the autoimmune space, which I'm sure many people have heard before, but it's like you have this loaded gun and then you have an incident that pulls the trigger. And this car accident for me, I think, was the trigger. And if I go back and even just look at labs, look at symptoms, I was constipated for almost my entire life. So by default, I wasn't eliminating toxins in my body. So of course I had toxin overload issues. For me specifically, that was heavy metal issues. That fed all kinds of gut overgrowth issues. Drinking was a main coping mechanism for a lot of my life, especially in my late teens, early 20s. Not great for my liver, not great for your gut, not great for stomach acid. And then we layer all the trauma on top of that. I mean, all kinds of nervous system issues, all kinds of nutrient deficiency issues, inflammatory issues, all of the things. And so, when people talk about autoimmunity just happening all of a sudden, it's like, maybe you all of a sudden felt it, but there were so many other underlying things that stacked up essentially that, yeah, of course, your body was waiting for the moment to essentially launch all of these things and to feel all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And FDN use an image of, it's like an iceberg, right? You see this little tiny cap on top of the water, but then underneath this massive iceberg underneath. And that's typically what's happening for most people because we live in an environment in a very stressful society, in a society that normalizes consuming alcohol like it's just a nightcap, it's a party thing, when it's a legitimate poison. And we don't realize that as time goes on and, we live to be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, it's an accumulation problem, not so much an age problem. We, of course, are going to have that natural decline, when we enter perimenopause, which is what I want to talk to you about because you do help a lot of clients when they're in that phase. But it becomes very challenging to have normalized hormones and to have normalized energy levels, consistent mood stability when you have this iceberg underneath the surface, which we can compare that to a big sludgy bile form because when our bile is backed up, we can't build our hormones properly. If we can't extract those fat soluble vitamins, we're screwed. So I want to hear about what your theories are surrounding perimenopause and how you're helping women overcome that almost brainwashing that they're like made to believe that, oh, they're 40 or 50 now. They're automatically, they're going to start declining. They're going to start aging rapidly. It's not a necessary thing. So if you would love to dive into that, I'd love to hear what your ideas are.
Yeah, I think a big piece of this is like Western medicine has a time and a place, and not good when it comes to women's health, one, but two, also preventative health. And so, when I think about perimenopause, and I was in perimenopause before the age of 30 and was able to reverse myself out of it. But it's not just an age thing. Your body at some point cannot keep up with all of the stress that it's experienced from toxin load, from not sleeping, from not taking care of yourself, from doing everything for everyone else, from not regulating your nervous system, for not eating the right things, not drinking enough water, doing all of the things. And at some point, your body is going to start to feel that. And for so many women, perimenopause, when the hormones start to naturally decline, their body is at a breaking point. And it's all of a sudden, almost overnight, it seems like, I have the weight gain, I'm not sleeping anymore. I have all my whole body fat and body shape is changing, and I'm not sleeping, and I want like rage fits, and then you're crying on the floor the next moment, and all of these things. And yes, hormones are a piece of this, of course. And what are all of the things that impact hormones that we don't look at until our body starts to scream at us? And, unfortunately, our society is not super built around, women's cycles and supporting women through their natural flow of what our hormones naturally look like. And our society is built around the 24-hour male cycle and not the 28-day, give or take, female cycle. And so it's the chronic stress, it's the toxin load, it's not feeding and fueling your body enough. It's the gut overgrowth issues, and it's the PPIs and lack of movement and having wrong movement patterns, overdoing workouts and overstress. It's all of the things, and it's a snapping point. And so I think for me, when we only look at hormones, we're missing the bigger picture. It's like, what are all of the things that are also impacting the hormones? And yeah, hormonal support absolutely may be beneficial, whether that looks like nutritional support, supplemental support, HRT, BHRT. There's so many different options that depends on the person and what the best option is for them. But also, if we're only looking at hormones, we're doing a huge disservice to ourselves, to our body, for our long-term longevity. And that's a major, major issue that we really look at, not only the hormones, but also the toxin load, the gut overgrowth, the chronic stress, the not sleeping, feeding and fuel your body appropriately, moving your body appropriately. How do we learn how to be safe in our body, sometimes for the first time ever in our entire lives? All of those things matter and also impact the hormones, which is what can make that period of time so miserable for so many women. And Western medicine doesn't have good answers. They don't have good testing options. They're not well versed and well trained in what is actually happening in our bodies. The black label on estrogen just got removed. Oh my goodness, why did it take this long to get that removed when estrogen is protective of our brain? Women are more likely to get Alzheimer's. Is that an estrogen thing? Maybe. It could be playing a part in it's still people aren't recommending testosterone, and we know that's so protective for bone density, muscle mass. Like, why? And so there's just not enough education, especially in Western medicine. But also I see too many people in the functional space also just looking at hormones, which I think is a huge mistake.
It's a massive mistake, and I totally agree with you. Like, I genuinely don't believe I can get enough insights just from a Dutch test, because what is causing those markers to be low? There's so many different things that can suppress estrogen, suppress DHEA. Like, we need to look at the cortisol, pattern, but why is the cortisol elevated? Why are we diverting more to that hormone than we are to our restorative, rebuilding, repairing hormones? And you had said something that I wanted to ask you a question on. Oh yeah, so with the perimenopause, I get that it's more than just one thing, right? It's always more than one thing and they compound on each other and they have a cascading effect. But if you had a perimenopausal woman right in front of you right now and she, probably couldn't afford a coaching program or something like that, what advice would you give her? Like, what would be the first thing that she could do that would apply to anybody to help her start to see less of those symptoms, to stabilize her mood, to lessen the irregularity in her cycles? Like, what's that one thing that you think would be the most impactful for her?
I think, the big thing I always talk about is stress. Reduce your stress. And the issue, I think we also need to define what stress is as well. Stress isn't just, I'm really busy at work. I am not getting enough help at home. I'm just busy. Yes, those are stressors, but also, what does your protein intake look like? Are you getting fiber? Are you super low calorie? Are you eating 800 calories to 1,000 calories a day, which no one can get enough nutrients that way? Are you sleeping? Do you have a way to actually manage your stress? Are you living off of caffeine right when you wake up, which we know is not the best for cortisol and for stress overall, especially for that belly fat? Are you eating breakfast? Are you working out too much? Are you working out not enough? I think just really looking at so many of these really basic things goes such a long way. And I get that our society is based around quick fixes and you just want a pill, you just want a supplement to help you feel better. And there's so many limitations from that. And if we really actually want to feel better and feel better long term, we've got to make some dietary lifestyle movement shifts, and it needs to look a little different. And sometimes that means stepping outside of our comfort zone and asking for help and delegating tasks and taking some things off your plate and giving yourself a little bit of time and space to actually take care of yourself, because it's important. You only get one body.
That's so real. It's so real. Especially, I work with a lot of moms and helping them figure out and like actually look at their full task list and see like where can you actually like have the kids get involved in this? You know what I mean? Like you can make these things fun, like the cleaning and all of this, like make it a learning experience, a bonding experience with them. If you're a business owner, you know what I mean? And you're overwhelmed, you're working 12-hour days, you obviously you have a certain pay rate, right? So I have them go through this process. I'm like, okay, you need to divide your, yearly salary by, this number in order to get what your hourly rate is. If your hourly rate surpasses what it would cost to get a cleaner, that saves you 2 hours a day, and especially if you're operating a business, like you really think that that's going to be like a task that is necessary for you to do. There's a guy, I can't think of his name right now, but he preaches this kind of like this motto in life. And he says that you should only be acting on your highest values, what your God-given talents and skills are. The cleaning the house, is that like a God-given skill that you have? Probably not. Maybe hire somebody that's actually operating a business doing that. So there's so many things that you could do to reduce your stress. And I know it seems so broad and generalized when we say reduce your stress. Well, it's like, it's a lot of different things. It's like we have to look at and reflect a little bit on what is actually making us feel overwhelmed and stressed. And usually it's the lack of delegation, it's the people pleasing, feeling like you can't ask for help. You need to challenge those belief systems. Is that actually something that you incorporate into your plans as well? Like, do you coach on like visualization and things like that?
We do so much nervous system regulation work. And I got a divorce last year and it was exactly that. I needed a partner and I was being more of a mom than an actual partner. And I was like, this is no longer acceptable in my life. And I need to make a switch. I need to make a change. This has to be a team, or I might as well do it all by myself and not have to care for another person. And the reality is so many women are in that same kind of position where they're caring for the kids and cooking and cleaning and planning and preparing everything and managing everyone's schedules and then also working full time and then doing all the things. And it's, society tells us we're supposed to be superwomen and we can do anything, we can do everything. But it's like, should we be doing everything? No. No, we absolutely should not be doing everything. And it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to ask for support. It's hard to lean on other people. It's hard to challenge your partner to step up and actually be a partner in your relationship. And that's huge. And I'll tell you, like my nervous system, I did so much nervous system regulation work over the years, and making that one switch was life-changing. And not saying everyone needs to get divorced or, like, dump their partner. You know, like, your relationships are a really big deal, and we need to look at that. We need to challenge that. We need to not be someone else's mom, that we're not actually their mom. We're supposed to be a partner, a wife, a significant other, and that's a really big deal. And asking for help, asking for care, asking for support, being cared for, and knowing how you like to be cared, how you like to be loved is so important. And who teaches us that? No one taught me that. No one teaches most of us that. And if we don't feel loved, if we don't feel cared for, if we don't feel seen, if we don't feel heard, is your nervous system ever really going to be able to be regulated? And are you ever going to be able to really heal and stay healed long term? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they did some kind of study to prove that you need like, I think it's something like 8 hugs a day in order to
Mhm.
get the adequate oxytocin release. So like for women, like when they are actually around their cycle, it's actually really important to increase that human physical touch. Like that is an actual need that we have. And I think to talk about the divorce that you had and that partner that you had, a lot of us, when we go through periods of time when we're single, right, we're touch starved, and then we end up bonding to an individual. The beautiful things, trauma bonding, love it. My whole life has been that. Up until now, up until recently, but
Yeah.
yeah, the trauma bonds are insane, but like you get confused because from a physiological standpoint, like your body craves and needs that. It's a basic requirement. So if you're listening to this and you're starting to question your partner, like you need to have the courage and the bravery to, maybe have a tough conversation with your partner and with yourself possibly, and reflect on, is this relationship actually something that is going to nourish you, that is going to provide stability and safety and, you know, be consistent? Because the inconsistency, you don't realize how much that actually affects your physical health. Like a lot of these women that have issues with like dissociation, emotional suppression, the people pleasing and all of that, that energy has to go somewhere. You don't just forget about the anger and the resentment. It goes somewhere. And I know for a fact when I was in a toxic relationship and I wasn't getting my needs met and I just kept pouring and pouring and pouring into this person trying to lift them up, my skin was a mess. I had chronic back pain. I had, brain fog. I felt like I couldn't focus properly and I was irritable. And that's just not me. And it was because I was out of alignment. So to your point with the perimenopause, I think personally is being in alignment is the number one key thing. And that is a broad statement because what is being in alignment? Alignment with your purpose, alignment with your partner, in your career, with yourself. Are we lying to ourselves? Are we running narratives with other people? Are we manipulating scenarios? Like being truly aligned means being truly grounded, caring for yourself, taking the time to reflect and set intentions and, make that relationship with whatever higher power you have. You don't have to be religious in order to, know that there is something greater than you that can guide you. And it's just it's a big deal in that space, and it's something that's often forgotten about. We see these gut health cleanses and these parasite cleanses and all this stuff, but we don't realize that a dysregulated nervous system is what calls all of that in. So, something to ponder.
And it,
But I did go
I
ahead.
I was going to say, I think for me, one of the things that really started to shift my mindset around this was getting in healing spaces with other women who were also trying to heal and sharing our stories and evaluating what even are female friendships, like what a healthy female friendships even look like, being able to ask for touch. I need a hug right now. Like, someone please come give me a hug. And we snuggle on a couch and watch the movie, and it's totally platonic and totally okay, and it can be so filling for your heart, for your body, just receiving that really safe touch with another female, like, and it totally platonic and having these female friendships that are not competitive. We're all cheering each other on. There's no competition. I mean, once again, no one teaches us this. And this is how society used to be with women. Women used to be in circle and community and supportive, and it was all everyone would help raise children and help with different things and chronic illness issues and all of these other things. And most of us don't have that and don't have these kind of friendships, which, I mean, we also know that just talking to a close friend will reduce our cortisol significantly, specifically in women, and that can go such a long way. And I think that's something to strive for, and I think many of us don't have and are searching for it, and maybe don't even know we're searching.
Yeah. And it's totally a process, and that's why I always encourage people to find somebody that knows more than they do. You know what I mean? Or else you're going to be on this hamster wheel, this cycle of trial and error forever, or maybe not forever. You'll eventually figure it out. If you actually put the time into researching, like that's kind of how I went about it. Like I, self-taught for a while, but I just know that I would have been leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at. It wouldn't have taken me 10 years in order to get here if I had just hired somebody that knew more than me and if I had just trusted somebody to help guide me. It's very difficult when you come from a, previous situation in your childhood that is highly traumatic, where you develop a lot of distrust in people and it does feel impossible to ask for help and you feel like you have to do everything on your own. Like if you're listening to this right now and you're that person, I'm telling you right now, it's worth it to just take the leap and invest in somebody that, knows how to do this thing that you're trying to heal or overcome. It's super important. Every successful person that I've ever studied their story on, every millionaire, every business owner, they've always had a mentor or a coach. It's just undeniable. Like there's just no way around it. So, yep.
Learned so much from so many of the coaches, practitioners, mentors that I have had, continue to have. And I've probably learned more from working with other people than I have from actual structured education that I've gone through.
Yeah, like the college system is crazy. That it's designed, it's so designed to keep you in a box, to remove your critical thinking. Because the point is like what really bothers me is like I have no issue with dietitians, and I actually love dietitians that take it the extra step and get further education. I think that's absolutely essential for individuals who end up seeking out that route, because I don't think they really fully realize that it is structured in a way, it promotes illness in a way if you don't get that further education. And I think there's a lot of, if you scroll on Instagram or like social media, there's a lot of heat going on with the dietitians. They're getting dogged on a little bit and they're kind of barking back, and it's not that they are bad people. They get into the field because they want to help people. They have a genuine interest in nutrition. It's just like with our conventional medical system, right? It's designed in a way to get a specific result, and that specific result doesn't benefit common people. Okay. And that's what practitioners like myself and Megan, that's what we do. The point is to give you the result that you're looking for, because I'm not satisfied in my job unless I am giving you what you're paying me for. Like I would feel horrific if I just took your money and by the end of the program together, you walk away feeling the same or worse. I would quit my job, honestly, if that was the case. So very important to, trust somebody that is in the space that has taken the time to research and really knows what they're doing. I highly recommend Megan, especially for those mold clients. We were talking a little bit before the show started and how you've been helping a lot of individuals overcome mold. I would like to hear more about your process, the timeline, what kind of testing is required, and just like how are you helping those individuals? Because I know a lot of people that are struggling with mold are kind of being left in the dark right now.
Yeah, mold is a really complicated beast, and I've studied a lot of the more traditional mold people in this space and don't love any single one. I use a lot of information from a lot of different people and put it all together. We have over a 95% success rate in helping people heal from mold. And that's out of over 1,000 case studies with that. 6 to 12 months, I think, is pretty standard for most people. For people who are a little bit more on the sensitive side, have like really significant mast cell and or histamine issues, 8 to 18 months is probably a better estimate. For us, we prefer the organic acids test from Mosaic Diagnostics as our primary test. If finances are not the biggest issue, we might run a Vibrant total tox or mycotoxin test. We will not run any of the other ones because they're not as good, as sensitive, or as test as much as the ones from Vibrant Wellness. But we prefer the organic acids test just because it gives us, mold is never just mold. It also comes with so many other things, and the organic acids test helps us, along with blood work, come up with all those things that are also coming along with this. So, like broad spectrum, we're looking at nutrition, lifestyle, movement, nervous system, and then targeted supplementation for mold and all the things that are coming with. And so we're typically starting with some like drainage pathway support work as like prep work. If you're not eliminating, if your drainage pathways, kidney, liver, lymphatic system, like if you're not moving things out, you're going to get really sick if we dive into any sort of gut work or any like very specific mold. So we like to do some of that prep work. We get into some of the gut work, immune modulating, mast cell modulating work before diving into like our first big mold binder. Usually we also like to do systemic parasite work with that because mold is going to feed the parasites. Parasites, when they die, they're going to release more mold into the body, which can further dysregulate the system. So we like to do that all at the same time. And then we recheck. All right, where are you now? How's everything going? We don't expect everything to be perfect at that point, but the question is, do we have additional mold work that needs to be done? Do we have additional gut work that needs to be done? Do we have additional immune system work that needs to be done? And a yeast and fungal work that needs to be done. We need to look at all of those things, and then we always want to rebuild the gut, heal and seal the gut lining, address upper GI support, make sure mast cells are in a really good spot. We have to look at the nervous system side of things throughout this entire time. Otherwise, I can promise you will not heal and stay healed long term. We obviously need to make sure someone's out of mold, clean air, not getting constant exposure. So that's kind of like a really rough outline of what that often looks like. But it's so it's so different person to person because there is no one size fits all when it comes to basically anything, especially mold though, because it impacts so many things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's especially tough with those individuals that have like MTHFR. I feel like those genetic polymorphisms really do make it a more of a drawn out process. You've got to be very gentle with them. You have to use very specific supplements for those people just because they do struggle to process out those toxins that get built up. Do you ever do any type of nasal work for your mold clients as well? Have you ever looked into something
Depends.
like that? Mm.
Yeah, it depends on the person. It depends on their symptoms. Sometimes we'll use we have like 3 to 5 different like nasal kind of rinses that we may use in conjunction. Usually it's not going to be right off the bat. The sinuses are typically one of the last places we'll look just because mold can be so many other places. And if it's colonized in the gut, it's a way we have to address that first and foremost before we get to the sinuses. And a lot of times, if we get enough mold out of the body, the sinuses clear themselves out. Once again, it does depend on the person. Sometimes we're using a nasal spray versus like some sort of nasal solution that we're using, but it really depends on the person. It's definitely not where I'd start, but it may be part of the process depending on the person.
Yeah, I use it for the individuals that are having like active sinus congestion. They have like the chemical sensitivities, right? They're sensitive to like fragrances and whatnot. If they're getting like itchy eyes, anything that's like allergy related, we'll start off with the sinus thing. It's interesting to like see like how you differ in your process, but we still both get similar end results, right? What else
Yeah.
would I
And we'll
so
usually start with like a mast cell stabilizer, and that'll support a lot of like the sinus issues, the ear drainage. We also do a lot of work on brain drainage pretty early on, which also helps a lot with the sinuses. But yeah, we're big fans of mast cell stabilizers, and there's so many different ones out there, and those can really be beneficial for
Yeah. Do you use like blends or are you talking more so like on like particular compounds? Like what would be like your go-to mast cell stabilizer? Does it vary depending on the person?
It does. I mean, we typically work in 16 different mast cell stabilizers, and oftentimes we start with a fisetin. It's gentle, it's not crazy, it's inexpensive, and usually we only need 1 or 2 capsules a day for most people, but it does depend. Vitamin C might be more beneficial. We typically do not start with quercetin. Many people react to quercetin. We might start with like a luteolin or perilla extract. Those are some of the other ones we may use, but just depends on the person and kind of because they all work a little bit differently and what they're actually doing. So it depends so much on that person. But it's something we use. We use a mast cell stabilizer early for many people, not all people, but for many people.
Have you ever heard about the peptide KPV for mast cell? What are your thoughts?
Haven't seen great results of all of the peptides. I've got a few very sensitive clients on like super microdoses of tirzepatide and have seen good results with that. So we typically will use that if we really need something. And I have another practitioner that I'll often refer out to for that to help and support us along that journey. I think peptides have a time and a place. I think there's a lot of buzz around them, and they're not a magic pill. I think they can be supportive for many people, but I think it's like the next thing of like, what's the next magic pill? What's the next magic fix? And it's like, peptides are not going to be it. There is no magic pill. There is no magic solution to heal your entire body if you don't want to look at what you're eating and how you're living your life and all of these things. And I think they have a time and a place.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you can't just it's a signaling molecule. At the end of the day, it's not the actual compound that's doing any of the repair work, right? So that's why a lot of people will have varying experiences. It really depends on what you're doing, what your lifestyle is like. You know what I mean? Like if you aren't getting proper nutrition, you're not even getting enough like protein in, then how are you going to expect something like BPC 157 or TB 500 to rebuild, those tissues? Like you have to have the nutrition on deck. So I agree with you there. I'm on the same page there. I don't like recommending random peptides to anybody. There's always like there's some nuance. There's caveats, right? Like we have to look at you as the whole person. And there's sometimes, a lot of times, there's contraindications. You know what I mean? Like one peptide can work beautifully for one person, and then another person, maybe they have like bipolar or something. It's like something like CMAX will trigger a manic episode. You know what I mean? So you need to be careful when you're, delving into these compounds. You're right. It's not a magic fix. They can be very beneficial to those if you like really fit the criteria, like you said, for instance, with the trizepatide, but not everybody's going to benefit from trizepatide. You know what I mean? I have a lot of people in my DMs telling me I ran trizepatide for 3 months, gain all my weight back. I feel terrible now. It's just like, it really depends. And you should always have oversight when you are injecting things into your body. So,
And it goes back to the like, can you just tell me what I need to do to fix my body? And it's like, I would love to. I would absolutely, if there was just like one thing I could tell you to do, like, here's the thing. But the reality is, all of our bodies are so different. All of our lifestyles are different. And there is no just like, here, just do this and you'll be totally fine. I wish there was. Our whole healthcare system would be totally different. And the reality is we need to look at each individual person and their symptoms and their health history and their labs and all of the things. So we make sure that we are supporting them in a positive way and not doing more harm.
hmm yeah. Speaking of the labs, like when you had mentioned with your MOA clients, usually like your go-to is the oat test. Do you end up running do you wait to run the GI map until after you've been on the program for a few months, or like when do you start implementing stool testing or like to see what like kind of dysbiosis they have going on? What do you use?
Don't love a stool test. Rarely use the stool test. Yeah. I like the
Interesting.
organic acids test for gut work. I like blood work looking at the gut. I don't love a stool test. I love a stool test for people who are already in a pretty good spot and like really, really, really want to optimize their gut health. And I'm like, let's run a stool test. A GI map might be the case. It might be, I do like a gut zoomer for vibrant wellness as well. And that's where I see the most benefit. But there are so many limitations with stool testing that is it really worth the money? For us, it's not. We can look at other labs that are also going to show us other information. And we can even just look at blood work. And that shows us so much information about someone's gut and gut health that do we even need to run a stool test? Usually not.
Interesting. Do you make like custom blood tests, or is there a specific blood test that you use for those inflammatory markers of the gut?
I mean, the differential part of the CBC gives us so much insight into that. We may run some others more specific things, but even just the differential part of the CBC gives us, I mean, most of the information we need when we're looking at the gut. And if we are working with someone with mold, we've already run an organic acids test and have a way better idea of yeast and fungus and bacterial issues, gut inflammation going on, that it's like, do we need another, $200 to $400 test to take another look at the gut? No, let's just look at labs. Let's just look at your blood work and see where we're standing right now. Usually we don't need anything else.
Interesting perspective. And for the listeners that don't understand like what an organic acids test is, it's basically you're looking at the metabolites of those yeast, the fungi and all of that, not actually specifically the yeast and the fungi like you would on a stool test. And I get what you're saying there with the stool testing. It varies greatly. Like you can't take it if you're having loose stools. It has to be, a specific consistency before you test it. And if you're dealing with somebody that has, IBSD, it can be very challenging. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna have to wait a little while before you get to that point. But I use them in my practice because I mainly work with people that have like severe gut issues, things like Crohn's and whatnot. I love looking at like the zonulin levels. I like looking at histamine levels. All of those things are, they provide valuable insights, especially when you're cross-referencing and correlating them with other testing like a Dutch test or something like that. But that's interesting. You have a different approach with your gut health clients. And I love that. There's many, this is a gross analogy, but there's multiple ways to skin a cat, right?
Yeah.
So you knew what I was going to say.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you just a few more things before I let you go. This has been such a great conversation. I love it. But I wanted to know a little bit more about your process, not just for mold clients, but is there like a specific system? Because like, for instance, for me, we do repair and rebuild, calm the nervous system, phase one. And then second phase is pathogen elimination, fixing any dysbiosis. And then the last phase is reinoculation, maintenance phase, figuring out a way to, restore whatever was lost essentially. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your process is like and what is separating you from other practitioners. Like what do you do differently than a naturopathic doctor does?
Never have I ever met a great naturopathic doctor. I'm sure they are out there, and I have yet to meet one either personally or indirectly through another client. And so for us, we kind of like big picture kind of work our way in. So we look at drainage pathways, gut overgrowth, nervous system, like big pieces here. And so the order of those or combination of those kind of depends on the person and what they're dealing with. But those are some of the big things that we're dealing with. And then, we're going to work on, so if we've done like drainage pathway support work, working on using different binders to bind up different toxins, using different strategies for that, some killing work in the gut. We've obviously been doing nutrition work with this and lifestyle things and movement patterns and the nervous system and all the things. And then we would go in and rebuild at some point. Kind of all of the phases in between there can really vary person to person, but we're going to rebuild the gut, probiotics, prebiotics, heal and seal the gut lining, make sure upper GI support is in a really good spot. Those are huge protectors, while we've also done other things. And then we might look at sex hormones, cortisol, thyroid, like things that are really impacted by these other things. Once we've really addressed those, then we can look at these other things that are going on and help to even further stabilize and support the body. But that's kind of like our generalized approach, like big picture work.
Amazing, amazing. So it's pretty like, across the board. It's a similar fashion, right? So you have, probably a slightly different process than I do, but overarchingly, you want to target the drainage pathways first, absolutely, and go through that removal process. So I'm not sure if you do this with your clients, but like I give them this nice big document and I tell them to basically audit their entire lifestyle, their entire home, their kitchen, their self-care, their pantry, like across the board. We need to figure out how many inputs you actually have. And then we kind of make this like master task list and we just kind of go through it, as we go throughout the process, every 2 weeks, I create some tasks for them. Okay, now this week we that scratched up Teflon pan, gotta go. Gotta go. It's not good for you.
Mhm.
So it's just those little things that add up over time that end up just like overburdening the body. If we can go through a nice, solid removal process, like even if you did nothing nutritionally, nothing supplement wise, you would see a big difference just from reducing the amount that's coming in.
Exactly. And your ability to, we always think about like the stress bucket. And it's like, what can we take out of this bucket? So you just have a little bit more room and capacity for, inevitably, we're all going to go through periods of high stress. And it's not about, we don't have any control over certain periods of that. So it's like, what can we take out of our bucket so we just have more room and space? Can we, have a better sleep routine, a better morning routine? Can we limit exposure a little bit to toxins? Can we nourish and feed our body a little bit more? Can we learn how we feel stress and how to regulate our body during those stressful periods of time? All of those things are so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you getting on the call. I feel like I talked to you for hours and hours and hours, I'm sure. Maybe someday we'll get into a little bit of we'll talk about more of our hot takes, with the conventional medicine system and like naturopathic doctors, because I'm on the same page with you that like every client that I've ever had, they're like, yeah, I spent like 5, 10 G's trying to work with this naturopathic doctor. No support really. You know what I mean? Just like run a bunch of tests, give you a sheet of 20 different supplements to take, and then no, like, you know what I mean? No actual true help. So we'll have to
There's
dive
your
into
elimination
that.
diet too.
Yeah, there's your elimination diet. Always, always. But thank you so much for being on. I guess my next question would be, where can the listeners find you if they want
Ah,
to
well,
work with
thank you
you?
so much. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was great conversation here. And we're on social media across the board at Trifecta_Collective, trifectacollective.net. We have a podcast, Trifecta Collective Finding the Root, available on all major streaming platforms. We're on every major social media platform except X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it now. But we're on all the other ones. And so feel free to find us there. And we also offer free consultations if you just want a deeper dive into what's going on with you and your body.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll put all of her links and information so that you can find her easily down in the caption below. And that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks.